few house rules around the YSM8 values and what we do and what we say in our space. So first of all, we all listen and we speak with love and kindness about ourselves and towards one another. We respect diverse opinions and viewpoints of our community, and everyone is welcome within our space. I'm also navigating admitting people into the space, so please do bear with me. So a little bit of a quick intro into what we do here at YesMate. What we do is I help people to cultivate self-compassion and to do the inner work. And we host workshops and classes on self-compassion meditation, movement and self-reflection exercises. We create safe spaces for everyone to explore that connection with themselves and to really feel all the feels and to do the inner work. So a bit of quick recap for those of you who are new to YesMate. We started off by hosting vegetarian supper clubs, really celebrating home-cooked Punjabi food and serving that around East and South East London. We also host monthly meetups for our Sikh community, for Sikh females and non-binary folks, to come together, to chat, to share in a safe space their experiences and learn from others. We also host Snacks and Chats, which is championing our diverse mates in creative industry who are making tangible changes within their communities. And then we also host Good Stuff, which is where we are right now today. So we recently launched our first collaborative wellness zine, Good Stuff, which explores the wellness industry, wellbeing and community and care. And we've been observing and reflecting and exploring them from a POC lens. So a little bit of background, my journey actually started working within trends, cultural insights and research. I got a little bit sick and tired and bored of reading reports, articles that still centre around a white experience, written from a white lens, from an expert. So I really wanted to work with people who firstly inspire me and are making incredible changes within their community, and really shine the light on people of colour who are making the change. So through the research, we discovered that people are being more conscious of what they spend their money on how they're using this crisis as an opportunity to really slow down, to reflect, and to be creative. 2020 is the year of transformation. So we've really gained a perspective on who and what truly matters to us. So I'm really excited to have with us today community leaders, really good friends of mine, collaborators on the zine, wellness experts who are making the tangible change within the wellness industry. So we might all do different things, but ultimately our goal is the same, and that is to live in a world where we treat ourselves and treat each other with more love, more kindness, more compassion and more empathy. So without further ado, I would love to introduce you all to our lovely mates and collaborators. So I'm going to start with Abby, if you want to do a intro. So we have Abilasha Moonji, who's the founder of Moonji. So Abby, if you want to just do an intro into who you are and what you do.
Yeah, of course. Hello, everyone. It's lovely to meet you all. As Poonam was saying, my name's Abilasha and I'm the founder of Moonji. So at Moonji, we make plant-based ice cream that is inspired by Ayurveda and my Indian heritage. Basically, we make interesting flavor combinations using spices and superfoods to make ice cream that is not only delicious, but also really nourishing for the mind, body, soul. So one really core value of Moonji is really well-being and promoting health and looking after yourself. So that's why I'm really excited to be having this conversation with you all today. I was just going to add that when I'm not making ice cream, I love my music and I also love my yoga and meditation, which I'm hoping to talk a little bit more about today.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Abby. A warm welcome to have you here. Buzzing to chat ice cream flavours and chat more yoga and well-being with you. Chloe, wagwan.
Hi everyone, my name's Chloe. I'm a digital marketer by trade, as well as the founder of wellness community Thyself. We started out in October 2018, and it was a way of making wellness a little bit more relatable, as well as breaking wellness down and trying to make it as diverse as possible. So what we do is we not only just create amazing content, but we work with other brands, other collectives. So we've worked with you guys at YSM8. We've worked with ChromaYoga. So Nina's going to be introducing herself. And we worked with loads of other brands. And the goal is to make wellness diverse. And that's to do it in a really relatable, a really seamless and easy way. We just wanted to take the fuss and the complexities out of wellness and just making it more relatable. So that's what we do.
Thanks so much, Chloe. Thank you so much for making the time and being here. I'm excited to chat further with you as well.
Thank you.
Let's get Nina on board as
Hi, I'm Nina. I'm the founder of ChromaYoga, which was a multi-sensory yoga space in Shoreditch in East London. We opened about 3 years ago, but recently closed the physical studio due to the pandemic. But now we've kind of evolved, and I'm starting a digital wellbeing platform called Chroma TV, which is an extension of ChromaYoga, and a lot more of a broader offering. So yeah, that's me.
I think she's gone for an ice cream.
Can anyone else hear Poonam or not?
No, I think she's having a few technicals, but she's coming back.
I'm coming back.
Oh,
yeah,
she's back.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened there. Sorry. Classic Zoom. Sorry about that. Nina, sorry, you were halfway through introducing yourself and we just had a freezing issue there.
Oh, did no one hear what I said?
I did.
Oh, you did?
I heard it. Yeah, we heard it.
You might have just I think might have just been you, Poonam. You might have just frozen.
Sorry. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, if you want me to repeat myself, I'll repeat myself.
As long as everyone else heard, then that's the main thing. So that's cool.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Nina. Shuranjeet, let me pass it over to you.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name's Shuranjeet. I'm the founder and director of an organization called Taraki. And Taraki works with Punjabi communities to reshape approaches to mental health. And I started Taraki in October 2017 after my experiences of mental health challenges, especially when transitioning from home, which is Birmingham, into uni. And we've been going for about 3 years, and we work with Punjabi communities around mental health awareness work, mental health education work, and we also have social spaces for Punjabi men, Punjabi women, and Punjabi LGBTQ plus folk as well. And yeah, I'm currently in Toronto at the University of Toronto studying for a master's in health policy. So yeah, I'm really happy to be here today. Thank you to Poonam for putting all of this together, and thank you to everyone for participating.
Thanks so much, Shuranjeet. Appreciate that. And thank you for everyone's patience in this whole freezing situ. Not sure what's going on there. So just to kick it off, and I know that we all discussed this at the beginning, what does it actually mean to be well? And Shuranjeet, I'll kick off with you actually. What does it mean to be a well-being in your eyes?
So for me, the idea of wellness is an incredibly politicized question. For me, the people who've historically been able to define what is well and what isn't well are people who have largely benefited from power in our societies. And so, we're only 20, 30 years away from, we're only 20 to 30 years past the situation where mental health institutions were the norm. We're not that far along a situation where we treated folks who had, different kinds of mental health challenges as though they were completely unhelpable. They were completely unwell. They were completely different. They were completely abnormal. And obviously, I'm saying all of this in air quotes. And so we still live in the legacy of that when we're thinking about wellness. For me, it comes out of largely, how the Victorians understood morality. How did they understand good and bad? How did they understand, what was right and what was wrong? We see this in in the early 1900s. We see women who were experiencing, say, reproductive health challenges would be put away in these institutions because they were deemed to be kind of quote unquote mad. And so really when I think about wellness, there has been a lot of unlearning in that whole process. And so I'm only really just trying to understand how I understand wellness from lenses that are informed by things that I am actively going out to engage, rather than a society that tells me what wellness is from a position that privileges a few at the expense of the many. So yeah, I don't know. It doesn't really answer the question, raises more questions, but that's what this is.
And that's the beauty of that question. It does just that. And I remember when we were chatting at the beginning, and you were sharing with me, obviously, that you had just finished compiling and publishing the COVID-19 report, which really looks at the mental health and the mental well-being of Punjabi communities with the effects of COVID-19 and lockdown. And are you able to talk a little bit more about how the Punjabi community has been affected by lockdown and share some stats and some interesting findings from that?
Sure thing. So as everyone knows, at the beginning of lockdown, there was a lot of discussion about how Black and minority ethnic communities had experienced COVID-19, experienced lockdown. Public Health England came out and said that Black and minority ethnic folks are more likely to die once they'd been diagnosed. There was increased use of intensive care units, all these different kinds of things. And so we wanted to actually do some research that was a bit more granular, because Black and minority ethnic is incredibly broad. I think it's an important starting point, but it's by no means the end point. And so we wanted to understand how Punjabi communities and their mental health had been affected by COVID-19 and lockdown. And just a few of our really key findings. When we're looking at Punjabi communities, again, we're looking at a huge, vast array of people. We're looking further into the data, and we saw that Punjabi LGBTQ plus folks who had previous mental health challenges were the people who were most impacted in terms of their mental health during COVID-19 compared to before. And then when we're looking at that again, we're seeing that first generation Punjabi migrants are also some of the people who are most impacted, as well as Punjabi folks who live with kind of comorbidities, so multiple health challenges, whether that's kind of physical or mental health. And so for us, what it showed is that having approaches that are based and appreciative of how different identities layer on top of each other, how different identities can work together, but also separately to create experiences was incredibly important. So taking that real type of intersectional approach when doing this work. And also one of the things we wanted to look at was how people are supporting themselves, because oftentimes in health, we look at things and we look at it from a deficit perspective. People look at what do these communities need, what goes wrong here, what is it that is lacking in this space? When in reality, there's so much that works in so many communities that is often sidelined in these types of conversations. And so, one of the main things that came forward is that 40% of the people who responded to our research used faith as, support during their experiences of COVID-19 and lockdown. And when we're defining faith, that's not just people who might kind of ascribe to religious identities. This is people who, have routine types of contemplation in their lives. They might meditate, or they might actually recite different things. And so what we've seen is that this is something that's come up time and time and again within our research, but it's not really something that's reflected in the general population in the same way. So we've been able to answer a few questions, but we've also got, further questions that we want to try and figure out, because we know there are so many things that we do well. And so we want to use those things that we do well as ways we can actually work forwards moving into the future.
Amazing, thank you so much. And I remember when we were chatting, we were talking a lot about, like, obviously going to the Gurdwara, going to the mosque, going to a temple. A place of worship isn't just a place, isn't just that place of worship. It isn't just somewhere where we get together for congregation. It's where we go to actually share our worries, to have conversations, to build relationships. And you're absolutely right. There's more work that needs to be done in that, and we can talk about that afterwards, because there isn't enough information around that is accessible for, especially, I would say, our generation and even the generation before us, where it's lacking, right? And I think that's really evident, and you've highlighted that in your report as well as we did, and what we worked together. And it just goes to show that once this conversation starts opening up, how can actually communities and individuals and people start working together as a collective to create better solutions, and also without making that assumption, right? It's something that we spoke about, and actually Abby, Nina, and even Chloe, we all spoke about actually creating these kind of spaces. And that actually leads me quite nicely into talking about spaces. So I'm going to jump onto Chloe, and we'll come back to you, Shuranjeet. And Chloe, I just thought we'd chat a little bit about, like, the actual space, the actual wellness space right now, and how it's going to move, say, in the future, because we spoke about, obviously, and with Nina as well, like, who's going to be rushing back to a physical space to actually work out? No one, right? And you did highlight when we were chatting that digital is the way forward. So are you able to elaborate a little bit more on that, like who's doing it well, who needs to man up and start, moving forward with that?
Yeah, so I think Nina can definitely jump in, because she's the one that actually has had a physical space.
Yeah.
I just rented it every now and then.
It's all
just
good.
took over it a lot, should I say. Couldn't get out of there, to be honest. But yeah, so for me, I feel like digital is the way forward. I've always felt like it needs to be, or wellness needs to be, in the more digital space. That's why I started Thyself. That's why I made it so digital focused, with, in real life events being another kind of addition to our offering. But I think there are so many people that are doing it well. There are so many communities. Would I say that they're very mainstream? That I probably wouldn't say that. So the ones that I think are doing it really well are the likes of, and especially as a Black woman, I can say that, there are spaces like Ethel's Club, which I've actually subscribed to, and I think is fantastic. Even if you have your own brand, or you have your own kind of strand of wellness, or whatever facility you're working with, I think it's always good to have external subscriptions, and to be really aware of what's going on out there. So for me, Ethel's Club has been amazing. It's really kind of got me through the lockdown. It's kept me inspired. I always find that a lot of the spaces that I want to be in, or that I find very useful, are generally outside of the UK. And that's mainly because the UK, I guess our culture doesn't really allow for wellness. Oh, I have to like tiptoe around this, but I do think that, the UK, in terms of our culture, what we have, it just doesn't really allow for wellness to be as fruitful and as open and as diverse as it needs to be. And I'm not just talking about diverse in terms of who subscribes, what cultures they subscribe to, what other effects. I mean, like, in terms of the range of options. And I think we can talk about mental health in that space as well, that there aren't a lot of opportunities for people to have access to different types of mental health solutions, practices, techniques, that kind of thing. So I've found that if I search outside of the UK, it's been really beneficial for me. And by doing that, I'm able to share that with my community as well. So I think what you spoke about earlier about wellness, and what to be well means. Of course, it's a state, it's an individual state, but I think it's got a lot to do with communication. It's got a lot to do with being connected. And I'm hoping that going forward, by being in a more digital space and by focusing on that, you know, we'll kind of elevate the experience of wellness. As a wider collective, I think we're all doing such a great job and we're connected. So it's going to be fantastic in terms of the future for future generations.
Absolutely. And to your point about Ethel's Club Sanaj, the founder is a legend, and they've obviously started some way good, right? So they've started a new space. But would you say, like, in the US, there's obviously more of a collective spirit? So I know, like, a lot of the brands, a lot of the community leaders, they do work together. There is that kind of collective spirit where it's slightly, I would say, it's a little bit more segregated here in the UK. Like, everyone's kind of doing their own thing, staying in their own lane, but slowly there's a shift that's happening, because obviously wellness is now moving from, like, people taking care of themselves physically to now realizing that actually it's just physical is just a small part of being well. We also have to look at our mental, our emotional, and our spiritual well-being. So yeah. I see slowly, like, that shift is beginning to happen. Would you say that's the same kind of lens that you're viewing it from as well?
I would agree. I think it's very easy to look at what they're doing in the States or stateside or just that kind of part of the world to think that, yeah, they are moving really quickly. They have got a bigger base, it might seem like, and there might seem like there's more kind of community spirit, but it's still very segregated. I've got a lot of contacts both in America and Canada who say that there's a lot of work to be done, that they, you know, the same things that I experienced that I've been able to share with them, they agree with, and they say that they're still experiencing that as well. So whilst it's important to, I guess, or it's great that we have someone or a group of people to look at outside of the UK, I do think our struggles are still very similar and there's still so much work to be done. So yes, I look at it in that wet lens, but I'm also very aware that it's such a global issue. So yeah, that's all.
And I guess it's good to see, like, the shift. It's the change is already here, right? And it is happening, but it's happening kind of a bit of at a snail's pace. And I guess, like, all of us here, like, we want it to be now. We want it to be yesterday, right? So it's about working together as a collective, and you know, having chats like this, working together, and really moving forward. Nina, do you have any thoughts on spaces and kind of the future of that? We did speak a lot about that as well when we had our conversation.
What you mean in terms of how I think, like, in a year's time, what kind of space is going to be available?
Yeah, 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult because I think it's going to get pretty bleak in the next 6 months. I think we're going to see a lot of spaces that are currently open end up closing. I mean, I kind of, like, voluntarily closed because of that reason of just, like, I don't, you know, this is going to last so long, and just the way in which the virus is spread is just, like, you know, social spaces are just not the places to be at the moment, really, as much as I hate to say it. But in terms of, like, the future and, like, after, when there's some sort of, you know, vaccine, or, you know, things start to calm down and it seems like there's a way out, I do think that, you know, digital it's not like this is a new thing, right? Like, people have been using digital forms of well-being for quite a long time now. It's not a new concept. It's just that now, like, people are actually just being forced into it, really, because there's no other option. I do think that people will have a balance, and they'll kind of, you know, have a mixture or a routine of having their sort of digital routines and then also going back to physical spaces when they reopen, because, you know, human connection and, you know, community is all, you know, is in real life. You can't replace that. And I think yeah, it's gonna look a lot more different in a year's time. I think it will take a while to kind of rebuild and become something that's I don't think it will go, I mean, I don't think we'll go back to how it was. And hopefully actually it will be that maybe within this period of time, because so many of us have like connected and got together and like are starting to collaborate now, that actually, you know, it could look like that actually there's a lot more spaces that are for the community and for people that actually really need it, rather than it just being about like opening these massive chains of like gyms or fitness spaces or, you know, yoga studios, which don't actually have any kind of drive other than just, you know, replicating, making money, doing the same old thing over and over again. And it might be actually become more about a collective spirit and like actually building a better society.
I hope so. Yeah.
Well,
I
I hope.
when we were chatting and we were talking about like how sick would it be to have that space where it is like, you know, I might want to rent it for a bit of a supper club and someone else might want to rent it. So it's more of like a cooperative where we can dip in and out and actually utilize each other's skills and experiences and create that. And then obviously you were telling me about how now ChromaYoga is obviously moving out of that physical space, and obviously you've created Chroma TV. So are you able to share a little bit about that, because it's looking sick?
Yeah, it's still I'm still like working on the development side of it. It's kind of changed, it does evolve, like it keeps on evolving basically. It kind of went from just being an extension of ChromaYoga to then being lots of multiple different sort of wellness concepts and approaches, and now it's kind of evolved into something that's going to be a kind of constant live 24-hour stream. So yeah, it's almost there. We're like still in the process of like really getting it together. It's a really big project, and you know, it's just me and a couple of other people working on it, and essentially, you know, I'm just teaching myself and learning how to do something new, and also at the same time creating something which doesn't exist. So it takes a while, takes time, but hopefully we'll be able to launch. The plan is to launch in January. But yeah, as I said, it's not going to be. It won't just be yoga. ChromaYoga is just going to be a very small part of what Chroma TV is. It will be really multifaceted. Its approach is really futuristic, but still using, you know, the same sort of approaches and practices and concepts of like what people usually go to when they're trying to seek some sort of like physical or emotional well-being. But for me, it's just really about like repackaging it in a way where people can really relate to it, or feel like it's something for them, or, you know, it's such a broad, like wellness is like means something different to everyone.
Yeah.
So you can't always make something that's going to fit one size fits all. But yeah, we're kind of doing this in a way which is quite futuristic and modern, but also at the same time really commenting on the fact that we're like very firmly in this like dystopian society and future, and like how we navigate that, and providing the tools in which people can kind of hopefully escape. So,
and you know what, like when obviously the stuff that I've been seeing dropping on socials, like to actually recreate something physical like we're all doing, and actually repurposing that and allowing that to manifest through a screen, the way that it's evolving and it will continue to evolve, it still has that base of that immersiveness, the space, that kind of whole 360 feeling through a screen. And I think like I think back to when I was beginning to start doing the good stuff workshops through a screen. It was like, shit, how is this going to transition through a screen? Is it still going to have that same level of intention? Are people going to still feel the same way? And I feel like when I'm looking at the content of Chroma TV, it has that, but it has it times 100. And is that because of obviously the team of people that you've worked with to help to recreate that? Because I think that's quite a difficult thing to do, because everything that you do is about being in that immersive space physically, right? So
Yeah.
transitioning that through a screen,
Yeah.
and to get it to that level, that's levels, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, like when we all studios and everyone, when we were in proper lockdown and everyone had to close, I was looking at, you know, other studios and my competitors, what they were putting out. And I've always been very adamant that I don't want to do what everyone else is doing. And I also wanted to produce something that was really high quality. And I wanted to make sure that the sound was good, that the camera was right, that it was all in, you know, streaming at a proper like resolution. And like, and so, and luckily I have a film degree. So I actually, yeah, got to use that for once. And when you say a team of people, it literally is just, it's like me and
The multifaceted, yeah.
yeah, it's me and my assistant filming, and like I edit everything, and like I build the website, I do all the streaming platforms, I'm teaching myself how to like do all the technical side of stuff. Like I don't I don't have like a creative team behind me, because I am a creative director. I'm not a yoga teacher, I'm not a wellness practitioner. And that's always the confusion about usually what I do and what my kind of role is in all of this. But I do have a very strong visual idea and aesthetic, and I think that I just get very bored easily, and I spend a lot of time on Pinterest making mood boards, and you know, getting influence from a range of like different sources and subjects. And I spend a lot of time thinking of ideas, really, which I thought was a bit of a cop-out at first, but it's actually kind of, how I sort of function.
Well, I think anyone that has an idea, and I'm sure that you all will agree, and anyone that is obviously creative and doing something creative will totally relate to this. Like when you have an idea, it just stays as an idea, right? But then when you actually put it into the world, there's a level of kind of vulnerability that goes into putting that out, because it's a creation that, okay, you might have been inspired, but you have taken that and put it out into the world, and that's essentially a piece of you that you're sharing each time that you do a new project, you put a new bit of content out, because obviously it's an idea that has been in your brain, and then you've put that out. And I've noticed, and I think we all touched upon it in the conversations, is that how everyone in some shape or form is being creative. So whether that is repurposing that degree of yours, or my brother's gonna kill me, but hopefully he won't watch this back, but like he's really got into cross stitching. So like everyone is kind of, don't laugh, it's amazing, it's in the zine, right? So everyone is finding kind of craft to be really therapeutic, to be really, really healing. And Nina, I'm going to come back to you, because I'm going to jump to Abby now, because Abby, obviously you've been doing some amazing creative work, and I've definitely got some of your clips as well. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about obviously creativity, and how obviously there's been a resurgence of being creative and actually using your hands. So are you able to share like obviously what you've been doing, because obviously you make ice cream, but you found other kind of coping mechanisms to help you be chill?
Yeah, of course. Well, I think my whole journey with Moonji from the beginning really was this like realization that I had to do something creative in the first place. Like I got a degree and I was working in this city and doing an internship, and I was like, oh my God, like this isn't making me happy. I really need to shake things up and figure out what I want to do. So I went traveling, and I ended up on this sort of meditation retreat. And in that month, I just really had a chance to just really like listen and meditate, and kind of like ask myself these deep questions, essentially, of like what makes me happy and what brings me joy. And it led me to realizing that it was working with food, working with my hands, and doing something that was creative. So then I went back home. I started Moonji in around September 2018, and then I started trading the year after, and I've sort of been doing it full time since. But I feel like somewhere along the way when I started trading, that I was just getting so busy, you know, just like constantly when you're working for yourself, you're just having to manage so many different things. And I feel like I, somewhere along the line, was kind of like losing that creative flow. Like I wasn't getting the ideas from the beginning that I was like really getting so strongly. And then obviously this year we went straight into lockdown, and it was like, okay, well, I mean, I was selling my ice cream to Pharmacy, which is a restaurant in Notting Hill in London, and a few other places, but it was the restaurant industry that like closed straight away. So I was kind of out of business the first few months. And obviously that meant that I had to kind of like adapt and figure out a new strategy for this year of how it was going to work and how I was going to be able to carry on with my business. But alongside that, it freed up a lot of time for me. And I feel like that's where this year a huge focus for me has really been kind of getting back into that creative flow. And I think lockdown, like as you were saying and how you've written in the magazine, it was a really beautiful chance for people to do that. And I think it was partly the fact that all of a sudden everything stopped, right? We kind of were forced, like physically forced to stay in our house. But like, you know, no distractions, no like, you know, going out and being busy all the time, but all of a sudden we had to spend time like with ourselves. And I think initially that it was quite difficult for people. But like, to be honest, like for me, like I've been on my meditation retreats and I've stayed in monasteries before, and like I kind of, that is almost like how I saw it, quite like a retreat basically. And you know, I really value actually having a lot of time to myself. So I think what lockdown was for me was a retreat and a time to really kind of focus on myself and again hone in and get back into my creative flow. So I'm actually really grateful for that time to be able to do that. And in that time, yeah, I was still making ice cream and coming up with new recipes. But the thing is that when you're making ice cream all the time as a full-time business, you don't really have time to like do a lot of other cooking. So it was so great to actually be able to make meals again and experiment with cooking. And then, like you said, Poonam, I get really into like crafty stuff. So I don't know, was it cross stitch? I do crochet. Yeah. So I it's actually something that I like picked up when I was younger, but I kind of got into that again. So I started crocheting, like I crocheted some hats for friends. Yeah, and then also these like clips. I got really obsessed with like making these like clips, and I was just sending them to friends, and friends were sending me back stuff. But then people started asking me to pay them for them, and so it ended up being like a little unintentional side hustle. But yeah, just like I think creativity, I mean, is really, I think, one of the biggest gifts that you can give yourself. I think a lot of people think that they're either creative or they're not, but I really disagree. I think everyone is creative, and I think it's a process of hanging out with yourself and enjoying that time, and also just having fun more than anything, which is why I think it's so important. And also just an opportunity to just find joy in, you know, in anything, because you can make anything creative if you want to be, and there's a lot of joy that comes with that.
Yeah, and I think when we obviously when we actually first met, we met over at like a beauty and food event. We connected over food. We connected over our story at Peru. We had a similar kind of journey coming in. You know, most people know that I was quite unhappy in my job where I was, and it's only like fast forward now I realise, like, even though I was doing something creative for a brand, for a business, I wasn't actually doing something creative and that was fulfilling my own needs, that was bringing me joy, like you just mentioned. And what's been really interesting to see is people who wouldn't necessarily meditate, wouldn't necessarily journal, they are using creativity as their form of a coping mechanism. And it's been so interesting, obviously, putting the zine together and researching, because actually when we're creative, when we use our hands, it has been compared to the meditative process of actually, first of all, what do? We actually connect and we are in the moment. So as human beings, we're either reminiscing about the past or we're either worrying about the future. Neither of those things exist, right? So we first be here now, and then there's something about creating something and watching it just kind of just go with it, with that process, with that journey, and see that expand, and that sense of accomplishment that you have at the end. And then if you can sell it, then that's even better. Abby, I've got some of your clips, haven't I, which are incredible. I should have actually put some in, but you're absolutely right. Like, I think people have forgotten how to even spend time with themselves, and it's really showed, like, the people who have found this process of being at home so difficult is you might externally have the material luxuries, but mentally you're a mess because you've never had that time to be alone, to even figure out what makes you happy. And I think what this pandemic has done is literally that. Like, if people aren't reflecting and if they're not thinking about how do they want to move forward, then, like I said in the Zoom, like, what are you doing, mate? Like, when people are saying they want to go back to how it was before, it's like that's slightly that's like, what's the word? That's you're living a disillusion, really. Like, that is not reality. Like, I don't think we can ever go back. Like, it's about moving forward, and moving forward within ourselves, with our families, and the people around us. And you're absolutely right, whether you're creative doing something with your hands, whether you're creative doing something, whether it's writing. Like, to me, creativity actually is about being open. That's what creativity is. So I don't think that it can be boxed into, like, obviously craft or whatever it is. But it's been really interesting to see the people who wouldn't normally use things as coping mechanisms, they have been using those things as coping mechanisms. So thank you so much for sharing creativity and ice cream. I just want to actually put this question out to Nina and Chloe and Shuranjeet. Like, what have you been doing to take care of yourself? Like, what are the kind of coping mechanisms you all have been finding that are helping you?
I'm just going to jump in because mine is really basic, but it works for me. It's my love language is quality of time, and just time to myself. So what I like to do is make my home a sanctuary. So that's a kind of ongoing job that I was meant to do years ago. And with the lockdown happening, I had no choice but to do it, and I had plenty of time to do it. So I made my space a little bit more, not so much homely, but just in my own kind of vision, what I wanted to see. I made it in a way that, I don't know, that there was more of a flow through it, so that I felt really comfortable when I was in that space. And yeah, I just say, just having time to switch off, because I'm always in my head, and I'm sure that everyone else can probably agree with this. That yeah, I'm just one of these people that is always in my head. Like, even to go to sleep is like a task. It's like I have to physically force myself to stop thinking. So learning to switch off, having different techniques to do that, that has just been what has got me through, really.
You've been reading as well, haven't you? We were talking about reading and how you found, like, joy.
Yeah, I wouldn't even show you. I've got a whole shelf of books and I haven't even scratched the surface. So yeah.
We should do a book swap. You want to see my
Oh, you can have all of them, because you know.
Thanks so much for sharing, Chloe. Nina, what about you?
I've done a lot of different techniques during lockdown. Like, it kind of started off with me just working and then forcing myself not to work. And I think, yeah, what Chloe was saying, like, having that space of just not working and for once just switching off, and like, it was a real opportunity. And like, it really kind of like helped me to kind of just reset again. And because I was already kind of getting to the point where I was getting quite bad like brain fog, and I wasn't really feeling inspired anymore, and just like literally having that enforced time to do nothing was really really amazing. And I suppose otherwise I kind of I walk a lot. I really enjoy walking. I feel like I get my best ideas when I walk. I also do something which sounds weird, but I talk to myself a lot because I need to, you know, I spent a long time living by myself, and I feel that you can get quite bogged down with a lot of the stuff that's like that your inner chatter, basically. And I think the times where I've actually just verbalized it, or like said it out loud, said some ideas out loud, or kind of like tried to work something out in my head that I've just spoken about to myself, to no one, it's actually made a lot easier to process things. And and that goes as far as like, you know, having arguments with people where I don't want to have an argument with them because it's not going to get anywhere. So it's a lot easier to just like say it out into the ether, let go of the anger, and then just move on, rather than having to engage with any kind of like unnecessary conflict. So yeah, I do actually find that quite helpful, even though you might sound
No, because when I
crazy.
remember when you were telling me, and I was like, I do something similar. I will write stuff down, and
Yeah,
then if I'm vexed, then I'll just like put it in a ball of paper and just get rid of it. But
yeah, exactly.
but it's better that we find a coping mechanism. So if we're not speaking, if we're not writing, then it does stay in our head, and then what happens then, you know, anything that we repress, anything that we resist, is going to naturally erupt some shape or form. You're going to be in Sainsbury's having a breakdown over that they don't have ciabatta, but it's
Yeah,
not about the ciabatta, is
exactly.
it, right? So it's better that we release that, and
Yeah,
whether it is talking to yourself or writing something down, that you get that out of your system.
yeah,
So no, I
definitely.
don't think it's weird at all. Thanks for sharing. Shuranjeet, what about yourself, mate? What have you been doing? I know you've been running, haven't you?
Yeah, so I well, just before lockdown started in the UK, I was still in Toronto, and I had to fly back like 3 days before lockdown started in the UK. So I had to pack up all my stuff here, like pack up my apartment, like put it all into storage, like change my flight and all that kind of thing. So when I got to the UK, everything was like added just stress. And I was going back to live, you know, in my family home, at home, and there were 5 others. And so there were like 6 of us in total, just all existing at home, all of us working from home, or like at school from home. And so like that was really difficult, I'd say, for a couple months, just trying to find that balance again, because, you know, I'd gone from living on my own for like 9 months to being back at home. But yeah, like I agree with what Nina said about walking. Like for me, walking is absolute godsend. Like just having a space where, you know, you can go really deeply into thinking about particular things, and you come up with, you know, ideas for certain things, that you're able to reflect on something in a way that I can't normally do in other situations. I feel that like walking lets you think about things in a much kind of, like, you can go into topics in a bit more deep of a way. And for me, like, you know, having those walks in the morning, you know, I'd go out, you know, just leave the house at like 7. I'd just come back at like 8:30, and I'd just be like, it'd be that space away, and it'd be that space in the morning that really just allowed me to be with myself. And then that kind of turned into running, just because I wasn't really doing much else in terms of physical activity. So yeah, they were both really helpful. And I guess, you know, the challenge for me is like an ongoing thing. Like things can be working for a few weeks, and then, you know, something small might change, or there might be a small change in my environment. So like I came back to Toronto like 3 weeks ago. I was in self-isolation for 2 weeks, and this week's my first week like kind of out of that one hotel room where I was in for 2 weeks. And so I'm just finding what works here at the moment, and I'm kind of experimenting with like a couple different routines. I'm experimenting with different types of physical activity. I'm still, but, you know, constantly, I'm still walking. You know, even if I'm not doing anything else, I'm still going to go for a walk. Like even if I'm just like sat in my room and I'm bored, I'll just find something on a shopping list, and I'll be like, okay, I need to go and get, I don't know, like sweet potato or something, and I'll just leave, and I'll go on a like an hour walk to go and get sweet potato. And so
To get
it's
one
just
item.
to get one item. There are so many things, like I just pay for one item, and it's like, yeah, I'm
It
buying
was
one
worth
sweet
it. It
potato.
was worth it.
E-
But
Exactly.
you're right. Like it gives us that spaciousness to actually just switch off from from everything around us. And similar to you, like I've really got into going for walks, but actually leaving my phone at home, and not like normally I would walk with a playlist, but I'm like, I'm going to leave my phone at home, have that time to actually disconnect from everything and everyone, because I actually just need that time to think, to really have my time, and to really just connect with myself. And also it's free, right? So we've noticed that a lot of obviously people are exploring things that are on their doorstep, exploring their local communities, local surroundings, and finding like new places to explore. So, you know, doing things that are free, and also that, you know, don't cost you anything more than a sweet potato. What more do you want in life? So that is winning. We've got a few questions actually, so I'm just going to start just reeling these out. We have a question from Tiffany, who is saying she would love to know from all the panelists. This is a great question. What's the one big trigger to avoid to protect your mental health? To manage your mental health? What's the one big trigger to manage your mental health? If anyone wants to take that question.
I just potentially say that everyone kind of has different things that might put them into a challenging space. You know, it's that whole process of trying to understand what works for you and what doesn't work for you in different situations. Like, you know, some of the things that might put me into a challenging space might be different from what put someone else into a challenging space. So I know for me personally, I like to be in environments that are quite calm. Like I know if I'm in too busy of an environment, there's like too much going on, and I get like there's too much like sensory stimulation, and that can kind of be difficult for me. And I know for me as well, you know, if I realize that I'm sleeping later than I usually do, you know, that will then have like a domino effect on, you know, how I am the next day, which might make me sleep later, and all these different kinds of things. But like for me, these things took a bit of time to figure out. Like one really random small thing for me is natural light. So if I am not paying attention to natural light, then I know for me that I'm not in a particularly good space. So I try and get as much natural light as I can. And, you know, that's made such a difference to me. And it's just figuring those things out. But I went, you know, years without realizing that I enjoyed natural light. And so it's almost like a trial and error thing. And yeah, there's no like one size fits all, but yeah, hopefully we kind of, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Anyone else want to take that question? We've got a few other questions coming in as well. And actually, this is a question that I asked you all when we were chatting. How do you differentiate between wellness and well-being? Chloe, you want to take that one?
Yeah, so for me, I remember you asking me this. I can't remember what I said. But wellness, I'm such an action-driven person. So for me, well-being is, again, it's like a mind state. So it's an active journey within my mind state to get to a place of, I guess, health, good health, good mental health, and a state of being, it's basically what everyone else has just said, like, you know, being calm, being zen. For me, that all equates to happiness. So happiness for me isn't necessarily a physical thing, it's a state of being. So that's why I would say well-being is a mindset, and I guess wellness for me personally is more of an action. So it's taking actions to better your well-being.
Amazing.
I don't know if that makes sense, but it's made sense to me.
And again, yeah, no, it made sense to me. And again, I think this is relative as well to everyone. So Abby, do you want to take that as well? How would you differentiate wellness and well-being? Is it different to what Chloe said, or?
Yeah, really similar similar lines. Like I think it reminds me of when we spoke before the magazine, for the zine. For me, there is a very distinct difference between those two words, like wellness and well-being, because I think, like we were saying, wellness is almost something that we associate with something that we have to buy to feel good. Like it's an industry that's been created around, feeling good, essentially, for your health. Whereas well-being, in my opinion, is something that is completely self-generated, doesn't cost anything, you cultivate that yourself. And I think that you do that through having well-being practices, basically, which could be anything: a creative practice, meditating, walking, doing yoga, just doing all those things that basically get you back to a state of being, which is sort of what I said when we first spoke.
And I remember when we were chatting, and obviously we were exploring that, and we were talking about actually everything that you consume, whether it's something physical, like you just said, like obviously well-being, it doesn't cost anyone anything, but actually let's actually look at, as individuals, as a society, like what are we consuming mentally, what are we consuming physically, what are we even consuming spiritually. That has a huge effect on our well-being. And we were talking about Netflix and talking about sleep, and obviously how I can't remember the CEO of Netflix, he was saying our competitors, like our competition is sleep, and we're winning. And I was like, that's not a good thing. Like if you're not sleeping well, you're not a well-being. Do you know what I mean? Like, so you have to kind of have all of that in balance. We have a quick question for you, Abby, actually. Are your ice creams available at the moment?
Oh, yes. So they're available in London. So I'm looking to set up an online shop so you can order from my website directly, which is www.wearemoonji.com. But I currently sell my ice cream at Pharmacy in London. It's in Notting Hill, and I also sell in South London at a restaurant called En Route. And I also have a couple of other launches and exciting collaborations hopefully coming up soon. So
follow the Insta and do a DM and get all the deets on there. But basically, get your ice cream in. And we've got another question here. So this is again to everyone and applicable to everyone, because this is literally what we're all doing, and I feel like a lot of people are struggling with this. How have you managed to work from home and implementing boundaries with yourself and those around you? So if anyone wants to take that question.
I will just jump in and say it's difficult.
Yeah.
Like there is
Let's not beat around the bush.
Yeah, like there's no right or wrong way. Like again, I think what we're all trying to say is that wellness and well-being and structure and whatever we're going to discuss, whatever buzzwords we're going to use or whatever terminology we're going to use, like it's all about being open to the process and just being really, I guess, open to failing or to have things fail on you, certain techniques which won't work for you. There's certain things that might work for you at a certain time, and then a week later or a couple of weeks later, months later, it just might not have the same effect. So just being open to that process is one of the best ways that I've got through lockdown, got through working from home. Like Nina said, like we've been on a walk before, and I think getting out into nature, being around people has helped me. I definitely say scheduling my time has been a bit better. Again, all of the things that I wanted to do when coronavirus wasn't even a thing, I've had time to really address and really see if it's a priority for me. So, boundaries could be just as good as saying, prioritizing certain things in your life or figuring out what is a priority, and then making sure that you try and stick to a schedule, but making sure that there's time in between doing things that you have to do and doing things that you want to do, just having time just to sit and be. So yeah, for sure. Like I try now to not put more than two or three things in my day. Before lockdown, I was doing around about 5 things. Yeah, and it was too much. I have the grey hairs and the skin conditions to prove it. But yeah, I definitely just say putting time in. So if I have a meeting, you know, I block out half an hour afterwards just to kind of sit with the information that I have, maybe chase up things. You can't just be on like back-to-back calls. It
Yeah, we're
doesn't
not
work.
robots. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think we all are working a lot harder, considering we're not moving so much. We're working a lot harder, so our brains are just heavily impacted. So I think it's good to have some time just to stop, just to breathe, meditate. I meditate first thing in the morning, like without even leaving my bed. I have to do that. I have to plan who I'm gonna, not who I'm gonna be, but how I'm gonna show up for the day, like what is gonna be my attitude. A few days ago I woke up not in a great mood, and I think that's because the weather plays a massive part on my emotional state. So I had to kind of get myself into the right frame of mind, figure out what I'm going to do today, how I'm going to address it, and how I'm not going to let certain factors which I can't control me. So those are just a few tips.
I love that. And would you say, like, in this time, because I'm just saying from my experience as well, like when you're putting in boundaries, so when you're saying no to people maybe you would have said yes to before, to like what I'm saying, work, personal, when you're putting in those boundaries where you need that time actually to decompress, to go out for that walk, Shuranjeet, to get your sweet potato, whatever it is, when you're putting yourself first,
Yeah.
and you're doing you, taking care of your needs and honouring those needs, are you finding that those people you might have said yes to previously, they're like, hold up a sec, Chloe, like what's going on here? Like, has that been difficult to navigate? Have you experienced that?
No, mainly because I just don't have that kind of relationship with anyone. I'm gonna keep it real with you. No, I think there's maybe 2 people that can question me, and they even know not to do that. I think, yeah, like from me being on this journey, and for me learning all of these things and being a part of thyself and creating it and working with like you amazing people, it's just like I've led by examples. Do you know what I mean? So people know that, you know, it's not even a question of saying how dare they. Like, if someone's doing something, you need to be aware of it. You need to be able to see it. You need to be able to see people. That's another thing that I've learned during lockdown. I feel like everyone sees each other a little bit better. So, you know, being aware and seeing when, you know, someone is saying something or they're reacting in a certain way, like you should take it on board.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like as founders, as directors, as creating something and putting it out into the world, platform, whatever it is that you're doing, I think people also, and I think this is a topic for another time, but I think a lot of people forget how many hats that you're wearing. So again, I know, Nina, I assumed obviously you have a team, and like all of us, like I'm sure that we've all had, there's been a point where people do think like, okay, who does this with you, and it's like, hold on a second, I'm a one-man band over here. So like, even when I was doing the zine, it got to a point where I wasn't happy with it. I redesigned it, and then I was still feeling bad for like not making time for certain people, but I was like, this is my priority, I need to do this, and I shouldn't feel bad for having to put this first, right? But often people forget, and you're right, like now slowly people are seeing actually like people are doing so many different things, and it's like it's about having that level of respect and that level of space. And it's like, if that's what you need to do, Chloe, like that's cool, like you do you, we'll reconnect. But the reason I ask that is because obviously we're balancing and we're navigating through work and through life. So yeah, so you haven't had any like awkward combos?
I haven't, but
That's great.
you know, I welcome it because it's like cool to like discuss these things. Like Nina's laughing, but I'm like so down.
Nina, what are you saying?
It might not come across the right way, but I mean, it's just that's life, you know. We have to know and learn how to navigate awkward conversations. That's why I like being awkward. Like I like being in those situations. It takes me outside of myself. I learn something from it, you know. And yeah, so yeah, if someone did, or if I think even if someone did, they'd still need to leave some room for them to figure out how they're going to answer me, you know. So that's great. That's making them think. That's giving them time to really figure out what's important here. And what are you asking of someone?
Romeo, done, mate. Abby?
So yeah, because I think it is about kind of having boundaries, right? And having self-respect, basically, and not letting other people overstep that, basically.
Yeah,
And
and I think not let them overstep like work or with personal things, and it's like we're like let's cut the bullshit, right? Like whether we like it or not, everyone at some point in this journey of being at home, we're all dealing with a level of trauma, right? So we've got that layer, and then we've got everything else that we're dealing with as a family, as an individual, as a human being, right? So everyone is navigating their own kind of shit show at the moment, and it's like we all actually need our own time to figure stuff out, and we also need to respect that. That's cool. Like you're doing your thing, everyone's doing their thing, and it's like how we move forward is by cultivating that space and having those boundaries. We've got some bad boy comments in here that I'm just gonna quickly read out because I'm also conscious of time. So boundaries more with family members, as we tend to let them get away with things easily. I found myself distancing from certain friends in order to protect energy. We've got some dog walking going on in here. A lot of people loving the walking. They've moved to the countryside. So I'm just
I
reading
think
a
it's
few
really
of these
important to say as well, like, not I'm very aware that like I live by myself and I have always lived by myself for, I mean, it's not as long as I can remember, but for a very long time.
Yeah.
But living with family, I've also experienced that, and that is really difficult. I've not experienced it during lockdown, but I think that you can do certain things, like even if you live in a house with your family and you only have like one room, like you can curate that room to reflect you and for that to be your safe space. It's how you treat it. It's not necessarily what it looks like, it's how you treat it. And again, I just want to say, like, lead by example. If someone, I know it's really difficult, but if someone's evading your space, a good way is to figure out how you want them to treat you and to treat your space and like lead by example. So do the exact same thing that you wish they would do for you to them, and eventually people do pick up. And if they don't, then you know that that's a way, or that's something that you need to address, whether that's moving out of that space or, you know, seeking some kind of support. That's a
And
great way to start.
I also think it's about asking, like, just being honest and having that open conversation, being like, this is where I'm at, this is what I need right now, and actually vocalizing that. Like I've done that with a few of my mates. I've got a question here. Bless, this person has asked twice and I have not answered it, so I'm going to quickly answer it before we do wrap up. Does anyone here have a coach or a mentor? Is this the best way to thrive is to have a coach, etc.? Does anyone here have a coach or a mentor? Thoughts about that? I will start and say that I do have a mentor and they are so helpful. Just going to drop that. Does anybody else have any mentors or coaches, and is it helpful?
I did before lockdown, and then didn't after, and then now I don't actually, I don't need it anymore, basically. But actually, that was actually for expanding ChromaYoga and for life before pandemic. I think they are really super helpful, even if it's just again a similar thing. I'll go back to the talking to yourself thing, but like it's literally saying things out aloud and like someone else regurgitating what you've just said said out loud, and then in a way which you can actually understand and process. So I feel like half the time when you do get coaches or mentors, it's actually just to kind of just solidify what you already know. So yeah, they can be, I think they are definitely helpful. But at the same time, I think it's quite hard to find, depending on what you're doing. Obviously this is quite broad, but like it's quite hard to find people that might get you.
I think it's good just from experience, and also I also offer like meditation, self-compassion meditation coaching, and I always offer like a 15-minute complimentary chat just to gauge whether do they even need coaching or is it therapy. So a lot of people confuse coaching and therapy and counselling as one of the same thing, and they're not. They're three very, very completely different things. So my advice would be to set up, have a bit of a complimentary call, see if that person gets you, and see if you actually feel them. Because if you're going to be spending time with that person, you have to connect on that level, and if you don't, then you're wasting their time and you're wasting your own time. Does anybody have any more questions? I'm conscious of time. It is dinner time, so if anyone does, just drop it into the chat. I just wanted to say a very massive thank you to our mates, our collaborators, our guest speakers here today. Thank you so much for taking out the time of your day, and also just being a part of the zine. And I know that you've all poured a lot of time and energy into co-creating that, so massive big up from me on that. So thank you so much, and thank you so much to all of you for making the time and being here today, and really taking time. I always talk about time because really time is all that we really do have, right? We always think that we say that we have this saying in Punjabi which is like "Kallu ho jana," like things will happen tomorrow. Bruv, tomorrow never comes. Like, well, hopefully tomorrow does come, but all we have is right now in this moment. So yeah, thank you so much for being here and listening to these wonderful people. And yeah, if you have any questions, any interests, definitely do DM the peeps. I hope that you all noted down. If you have any questions, DM me, email me, poonam@ysm8.co.uk. And yeah, I hope that you all took what you needed from this and have a relaxing evening and a great weekend ahead. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
I'm going to just put everybody's, I'm just going to share the screen one more time because I think we've got some people asking for the IG. So I'll just very quickly do that, and I'll just leave that on the screen. And thank you so much for joining. Do take a note of everyone's Instas. I hope everyone managed to get that. Thank you so much for joining. You can all sign off, go and have a cup of tea, go and have a dinner.
Great.
Thank you so much, Nina, Abby, Chloe. Thank
Bye.
you so much, Shanice, Pav, Jadanjeet, Jen, Harps. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye. Thank you so much. Thank you.